In 1936, when the Hindenburg was filmed in Germany by American engineer Harold Dick, airships represented the future of aviation. Their size, their luxury, their magic has never been matched by any aircraft before or since.
I flew on the Hindenburg once, and it was over Lake Constance. It was just a short flight of an hour and a half, but it was fantastic. It's just floating through the air.
On the 3rd of May 1937, the Hindenburg departed Frankfurt at 7:16 a.m. It encountered strong headwinds crossing the Atlantic and thunderstorms when it reached the American coast. Unable to land at Lakehurst, New Jersey, it flew to New York to give passengers a view of the city. Then the weather cleared and the Hindenburg returned to Lakehurst. But after what seemed a normal approach, flames appeared on the top of the hull. Within a minute, the ship was destroyed. The cause has never been fully explained. Since 1937, air accident investigation has turned into a science. If the Hindenburg disaster happened today, specialists will be called in immediately. But even today, investigating a crash in which a major fire occurs will present a challenge. However, there are new techniques that can discover the truth.
In the Hindenburg, information that comes by putting together the witnesses in a matrix and asking for all of these different witnesses, where they were, what they saw, when they saw it. A pattern evolves.
Modern accident investigation is about eliminating possibilities to arrive at probabilities. So we've asked experts to consider the evidence again and apply modern methods to look for new clues.
Nowadays, a normal sort of time for even a middling sort of accident might be 1 year. Could be 18 months, 2 years, just to collect the data.
The original inquiry took only 18 days. The final report was published before all the forensic tests had been completed, and some critical information was missing. The Zeppelin company had a safety record second to none. The inquiry took its word that the ship was in excellent condition. These days, investigators would go back through all of the maintenance records, logbooks, and in some cases, they would examine the history of similar airships.
Nobody would ever take anybody's word for what was there and what had been done, what hadn't been done.
In a modern air accident investigation, pilots not involved in the crash would be consulted. In 1937, 2 of the most experienced airship pilots took part, Commander Rosendahl and Dr. Hugo Echner, but both had interests to protect. For Dr. Echner, it was the establishment of the Zeppelin company's transatlantic services. For Commander Rosendahl, it was the future of the US Navy's airship program. The best evidence of what happened to the Hindenburg has survived in hundreds of witness statements. What people heard, what they saw, where they were, have been analyzed as witness statements would be today. Patterns have appeared. They challenge the official verdict that an electrostatic charge ignited free hydrogen near the hull. But in 1937, when not even this theory could be proved, sabotage was considered the most probable cause.
A criminal act obviously lets the major players off the hook. It certainly lets the manufacturer off the hook and the Civil Aviation Authority off the hook.
There was evidence that an explosion took place, but no proof that it was caused by a bomb. For historians like John Duggan, the reason for thinking sabotage is clear. From 1936, airships were being used for something more controversial than sightseeing tours.
Flights to the Nuremberg rallies, flights to the Olympic Games, all designed to put before the public the might, power, majesty of the Nazi Party. Hence, of course, the big swastikas on the tail fins. And that, I think, sets the scene for the Hindenburg and the Nazi Party in Germany.
Bomb threats were received. Security was stepped up. Worried passengers cancelled their reservations. Vaudeville acrobat Joseph Sparr got one of those cancellations. He needed to get home fast for a performance at Radio City Music Hall in New York. He was bringing home a German shepherd puppy called Ulla, and he wanted to be sure the puppy wasn't upset by the journey.
They let him visit the dog every day, and he'd go and talk with the dog and feed the dog and everything, and that was it. But he did go to see the dog all the time, and that was why my husband was sort of accused, you might say, of doing something that he shouldn't have done.
Captain Max Pruss was the Hindenburg's commander. He was interviewed by FBI agents because there was a suspicion that the disaster was caused by a criminal act. He was asked if there had been any suspicious passengers on board, anyone capable of planting an incendiary device. Joseph Sparr's name was mentioned. He was the only passenger who had access to the stern of the ship.
They came to the house, the FBI, and investigated my husband. They came in and talked to him and everything, and of course he told them what he thought.
It was after the FBI began questioning Joseph Sparr's neighbors that news of the investigation reached the press.
On this one day, my husband was on the ladder home, cleaning windows for me, and I got the newspaper. In the column, he mentioned something about my husband as a possible suspect for sabotaging the Hindenburg. Well, I went to the window and I told him he almost fell off the ladder. He got so upset.
Joseph Sparr considered himself lucky to get a reservation. The ship was always fully booked. Over the winter, 10 new cabins were added. There was now accommodation for 70 passengers, but this flight was only half full because of the bomb scare. If Joseph Sparr had heard the rumors, he ignored them. He relaxed, enjoyed the trip, and took these pictures to show his family.
He had all those pictures of the crew and everybody, and he was going to get some pictures of the landing. And the explosion came.
Joseph Sparr dropped his camera, kicked out a window, and helped another passenger to escape.
It came down so fast. We all got upset because of my husband being on it, and we didn't know whether he'd get off or not. I thought he was just gone, because it looked to me like everybody would be killed in that. And all of a sudden a man came up to me and he asked me if my name is Sparr, and I said yes. He said, well, your husband is alive.
Sparr suffered minor burns and a fractured ankle. His camera and film survived. Others weren't so lucky.
This one man, I don't remember what his name was, but anyway, they had him propped up in the bed. I think his whole back had been burned very badly. And he just sat up, and he wanted my husband to send his wife a cable in Germany. And he said to my husband, he said, just say, ich lebe, I live.
Soon after, the man died. The death toll rose to 36, including a member of the ground crew who was crushed under the ship. The FBI investigation found Joseph Sparr to be a good family man of excellent character. So the focus shifted elsewhere. And though it wasn't in the Zeppelin company's best interests for him to say so, Dr. Hugo Eckener blamed the ship's captain.
My understanding was Dr. Eckener never spoke to Max Pruss again, who was the captain, after that accident. And Dr. Eckener held Pruss responsible. And for not just one thing, that is the entire landing maneuver and how he handled it.
Dr. Schirmer's father was one of the Hindenburg's chief designers. The family lived in Friedrichshafen. Most people in this part of southern Germany worked in the airship industry. News of the disaster hit them hard.
Well, of course, there was an enormous interest as to what happened. Much of it we learned later on after the Second World War.
The findings of the inquiry at Lakehurst were never reported in Germany. Air Minister Hermann Goering announced that the crash had been an act of God. In 1937, it was not safe to express an opinion in Germany after the authorities in Berlin had spoken.